If you desire to be generous and good stewards with the money that you have, there are several tax-smart ways of giving that will allow you to be even more generous that I want to talk about. In fact, I want to talk about three of them that apply to the most people. The first one is called a donor-advised fund. Now, a donor-advised fund is an account that you open up, usually with a foundation. An example would be you could go to the MB Foundation, which is part of our conference, and open up a donor-advised fund with them. And then you would put some money into it. And once that money goes into the fund, you get a tax break. And then following that, you can make grants or basically give money to the charities that you want your money to go to from that fund. The advantage of using a donor-advised fund is at the end of the year, let's say this December, you could put enough money into that donor-advised fund to cover your giving for maybe next year or even longer than that if you want to. But you would get all of your tax break in 2021. Now, why is that an advantage? Why not just spread it out from year to year? Well, as you may or may not know, with the tax law changes that were made, I don't know how many, a few years ago, and they expire in 2025, the standard deduction is a lot higher right now than normal. In fact, they doubled it. So by moving your giving using a donor-advised fund to this year or all to 1 year, whichever year you choose, you can then take advantage of that higher tax deduction this year while taking advantage of the higher standard deduction next year. And if you would do that every other year, alternate between donating to the donor-advised fund and using the standard deduction, over the next 5 years, you could actually save up to $10,000 in what you pay in taxes, or even more if you're in a real high tax bracket. Now, the next tax-smart giving strategy that I want to talk about is giving directly from your IRA. Now, this will only apply to you if you're 70 or older, but you're either there or we'll get there someday, hopefully, and this is a great strategy to use. You can give directly from your IRA to a charity, and you won't have to pay taxes on that money. So for example, if I took it out of my IRA, put it in my checking account, and then wrote a check out and gave it to whatever charity I'm supporting, I would have to pay taxes on that money, and then maybe I could itemize and get a benefit from it, or maybe I wouldn't be able to itemize enough to be higher than standard deduction, depending on the year. So by giving directly, it just doesn't count as income. And this is especially useful for people that have reached 72 and they're required to take money out of their IRA every year, even though they don't really need it. So you could just give that money and it would meet your desire to be generous, and it would also not cost you anything in taxes. The third thing that I want to talk about is giving property or investments. So you can actually donate property that you have. You can donate investments without selling them. If you sell the investments and then give the money, you're going to have to pay some sort of tax on what they call capital gains, or on the gain that you made on that investment. But if you give that property directly without selling it first, you still get the same tax deduction, but you don't have to pay any taxes on the gain. And this is another thing that the MB Foundation can help you do. You can actually, using a donor-advised fund, you can give stock to them. It doesn't have to be cash that you donate to them. You can even give property to them, farmland, rental, any kind of rental property that you have, and put that into the donor-advised fund, and then they'll sell it, and you can use that money to make grants to your charity. So I would encourage you to look into these 3 ways and other ways that you might be able to use to be more generous and save money on your taxes. And I think it's just being a good steward with the money that God has entrusted to us.